One for all, but not all for one. This is Russia. A country that has caught up with and surpassed Nazi Germany. In the World Fascism Championship, Russia confidently takes first place. A golden swastika and a wreath of oak leaves. This is St. Petersburg, 2024. Russian March. Russian marches. The Russian March is a procession of fascists and Nazis of all stripes. Aqua fresh.
Didn't he say that in any Russian school where there are migrants, in the classrooms, their native language, which they try to use to communicate, should be banned? Communication within any Russian state institutions by migrant children must be conducted exclusively in Russian. If they don't know it, they are required to learn it. No other options are accepted. Any attempts to speak in the classroom, in the hallway, or in the cafeteria with a fellow countryman in their own language should already be considered a violation of the existing order.
And this is a broadcast on the Federal Russian channel in broad daylight. Just a little more, and they'll start calling for the genocide of other peoples. Oh, they're already doing that.
The only truly effective way to decisively end this protracted war is to completely burn the entire English Channel and utterly drown England and America with it. Otherwise, they have maliciously sicked the cocos upon us. They are already actively setting the Kazakhs and Azeris against us, and this relentless stream of conflict will be absolutely endless until we definitively deal with the Anglo-Saxons, not just give them a mere little pinch, but simply and completely destroy them. The English language itself should become a truly dead language.
And this is State Duma Deputy Pyotr Tolstoy, who is calling for the abolition of all nationalities in Russia except Russians. We ourselves are to blame for the emergence of the term Rusyane, Russians as citizens of Russia. Of us, Chechens, Tatars, Bashkirs, all Russians, this was not the point. Ivan the Terrible, took Kazan not so, that we would now start saying suddenly we're Rosyan. And these are the brave Russian soldiers, defenders of the Russian world and traditional fascist values.
I'm a Nazi.
I'm a Nazi. And not just a Nazi, but a hero of Russia and the best person in the country. And these are Ukrainian cities destroyed by Russian Nazis. Russia is Hitler's sweet dream. Hitler's. A Reich with a nuclear bomb. What could be better? An empire over which the Kalavrad never sets. All civilized countries understand that this is a scarecrow. It needs to be dismantled and denazified. But they are typically afraid of escalation, so they help Ukraine very cautiously. So that the Führer doesn't freak out and start cosplaying footage from the film Terminator. Los Angeles, 2029. That's why the civilized world places great hopes on the liberal Russian opposition. And this is humanity's biggest mistake since the claim that the Earth is flat. You really have to believe in some crazy nonsense like that. Can you imagine believing that you're walking on a giant sphere? You'd have to be a child or out of your mind to believe that crap. In the phrase Russian opposition, the key word is Russian, not opposition. Finally, we also find those who talk about the urgent need to decolonize Russia. Supposedly, our country is too big and needs to be split into a couple dozen small and safe states. But the decolonizers can't explain why people with a shared background and cultural context should be artificially divided. And they don't say how exactly this is supposed to happen. You probably won't be surprised at all if I tell you that Yulia Navalnaya, almost word for word, meticulously repeats and echoes the fundamental ideas and core tenets of the Russian ideologue of fascism and Vladimir Putin's deeply admired and favorite philosopher, Ivan Ilyin, who, while living in exile in the perceived decaying West, diligently wrote a significant memo article intended for his future followers and disciples, outlining his vision and philosophical framework. Apparently, Yulia has read it. When talking to foreigners about Russia, every true Russian patriot must explain to them that Russia is not just a random accumulation of territories and tribes. This organism is a geographical unity, whose parts are connected by economic mutual understanding. This organism is a spiritual, linguistic, and cultural unity that has historically bound the Russian people with their nationally younger brothers. Russia cannot be divided because all its peoples have already become too intermingled, and it would be difficult to separate them. Indeed, it is hard to explain why people with a shared background and cultural context should be artificially divided where colonizers cannot succeed. The wife of the tortured sandwich claims that the decolonization of Russia is a bad thing, and that the colonized peoples are already doing just fine. After all, Russification and ethnocide have been successful. In liberal speak, this is called a shared background.
Colonial policy was not invented by Putin. At all times, this has been the fundamental basis for the existence of the Moscow state, whether as a principality or today's quasi-federation. Do you think Yulia Borisovna doesn't know this? She knows, but she talks about Russia's shared cultural background. What kind of culture are we talking about? The culture of forced Russification, the policy of assimilation, the traditions of the physical extermination of our peoples? This is not ours. This is Moscow's background.
Let me remind you of Nazi Germany. Before it was denazified, it was dismembered. And look at the Germans now. They are so peace-loving that they're even afraid to supply weapons, let alone fight. That's what the beautiful Russia of the future should become. Not the way the so-called oppositionists envision it. To preserve the empire within its borders, to forget and forgive the crimes. And of course, to lift the sanctions. To rebuild the army so they can attack again. I don't know. After Navalnaya's spectacular speech, representatives of various peoples of Russia started recording responses to her. It turned out the background is shared. Not everyone is happy, that's putting it mildly, without using strong Russian language.
Yuri Navalny said that all of us Russians are the same. I'm Chuvash, and I can say that we and the Russians are definitely different, at least from those who are Muscovites. Just recently in Moscow, Ahmad fighters raped 2 girls. People walk by, no one even called anywhere. For us, Chuvash, that's barbaric. You understand? We are very different. When, I don't know, there's a garbage dump in some Russian village, maybe where Yulia Navalnaya is from, everyone will just wait for an official to deal with it. It could sit there for 2 years, everyone will complain about the smell, but they'll still wait for the official. If there's a garbage dump in a Chuvash village, they'll take care of it themselves in a day. And it's better for us to live in different countries, and we Chuvash don't need your submissive Russian values at all.
Yulia Navalnaya and the entire liberal opposition are a brilliant creation of Putinism. They actively promote Putin's narratives, just with European money and funding.
They call themselves liberals, the liberal opposition, but I consider them a pseudo-liberal opposition. And I explain this by saying that real liberals, from the very beginning, consistently stand for fundamental rights and essential freedoms, including, most importantly, the rights and freedoms of all peoples. These are pseudo-liberals because they fundamentally and unequivocally oppose the independence of national republics. They are absolutely against the freedom of the peoples of Russia. They want to preserve Russia as an expansive and dominant empire, so that we, the various peoples, remain their colonies and subjects.
Unfortunately, the civilized world continues to listen to Russian chauvinists. They drag them to all sorts of conferences, have tea with international leaders, and give them airtime to whine. How poor, miserable, and generally Russian are the Russians, the main victims of this war.
And now that the war is truly coming to Russia itself, in the form of these small, dangerous rockets, torpedoes, and so on, that's quite frightening. That's also very frightening indeed.
The civilized world should shove these non-sandwiches under the couch and finally listen to the voices of the peoples enslaved by Russia.
Who are you kidding? Who is he trying to deceive? Elena Vanya?
Deliberately, according to FSB manuals, or solely at the call of the mysterious Russian soul, the liberal opposition works with the Kremlin in concert. In unison.
I believe that if a Russian opposition politician is speaking somewhere, anywhere, it doesn't matter where about some future Russia, about some strategy regarding Russia, and does not mention Ukraine right now, when Russian missiles are wiping Ukrainian cities off the face of the earth, when every day we receive news of the most brutal missile strikes, sometimes on Poltava, sometimes on Lviv, sometimes on other Ukrainian cities, and does not at least express sympathy for Ukraine. In this situation, to put it mildly, that's a big mistake.
There can be only one real opposition to Putin, and it should be loaded into a Kalashnikov rifle. All these armchair and so-called mummies fighters against the regime are just classic Russian emigres. Somewhere at a table in Paris, stuffing themselves with croissants, whining, shedding tears over a volume of Dostoevsky, harshly criticizing the Kremlin regime, but deep down, sincerely supporting it.
So, in my opinion, there simply cannot be peace, stability, or security in Europe without the significant participation of the largest country in Europe, which is Russia.
It's just that if they openly support Putin, no one will give them a croissant.
That's why I'm forced to show him the fig on street.
Russia must be utterly destroyed, and the various peoples living there should become truly free and live in their own independent sovereign states, each with their distinct identities. If Russia is not broken up, it will continue to threaten its neighbors and the entire world. The more new and independent countries are formed on the vast territory of Russia, the safer and more secure the entire planet will become.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.